Vanessa kissed me on the cheek, her smile practiced. Perfect. It's just a business trip, don't wait up, she said, her voice smooth as silk. I smiled back, played my part, but something felt off. I'd learned to ignore that feeling before, the late nights, the sudden out-of-town conferences, the bad signal whenever I called. I let it slide because I wanted to believe her, but this time, I listened to that nagging instinct clawing at my gut. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I opened our shared bank account, 2 nights at the Regal Hotel, room for two. My heart slowed, my fingers curling into a fist around the phone. There it was, cold, plain, undeniable, the confirmation I never wanted. I stared at the screen for a long time, my thoughts methodical, sharp. If I confronted her now, she'd deny it, cry, make excuses, tell me I was crazy, gaslight me into submission. No, not this time. I was done being played. Instead of accusing her, I made a different call. Regal Hotel, how may I assist you? Hi, I'd like to book a suite under the name Vanessa Harper, I said calmly, pressing my thumb against the cool glass of my whiskey tumbler. The clerk hesitated. I'm sorry, sir, but we can't. I'll be arriving early, I cut in. Her husband. A beat of silence, a soft keyboard click, then... Of course, Mr. Harper. We'll have everything prepared for your stay. I leaned back into my chair, whiskey burning my throat. Perfect. The next morning, Vanessa left for her conference, rolling her suitcase to the car with that same easy confidence. I kissed her goodbye like always, watched her drive away like always. Only this time, I wasn't staying behind. By noon, I checked into the Regal Hotel using the name she'd reserved. Room 412. Her room, our room. I stood inside, taking in every detail. The champagne on ice, the single red rose placed on the pillow, the neatly folded robe meant for her guests. It was almost amusing how cliché she was. I placed my phone on the nightstand, setting it to record. Then I dimmed the lights, retreated into the shadows, and waited. Hours passed. I remained still, focused, controlled. At 7:45 p.m., the door handle rattled. Then it opened. Vanessa stepped inside, hair freshly curled, lips painted in a deep shade of red. Her black dress hugged her in all the right places, her perfume thick in the air. She turned, still smiling. Baby, I stepped forward. She froze. The color drained from her face. Her breath hitched. I met her stunned gaze, slow and deliberate, expecting someone else. The moment stretched, thick with silence. Then, pure, electric panic in her eyes. She had no idea, but she was about to find out. Vanessa's mouth opened, but no words came out. She blinked, processing, staring at me as if I were a ghost, as if reality itself had twisted into something unrecognizable. My presence in that room, our room, wasn't just unexpected, it was impossible. I let the silence stretch, watching the panic bloom behind her eyes, watching as she scrambled to piece together some explanation, some lie that might salvage what was already ruined beyond repair. Jake, she finally breathed, her voice weak, forced. What are you doing here? I tilted my head, studying her. That's funny. I was about to ask you the same thing. She laughed, brittle and desperate. Her eyes darted to the door, as if debating whether to run, as if she could outrun this. Outrun me. Don't. My voice was calm, even, but it held weight. Shut the door, Vanessa. She hesitated, then, slowly, she obeyed. I could hear her breathing, uneven and shallow. She clutched her purse, her knuckles white around the leather strap. It's not what you think, she tried. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Because I think my wife has been using our money to fund her little escapades. Booking hotel rooms under the guise of business trips, lying to my face. And I think she was expecting someone else to walk through that door just now. Tell me, Vanessa, am I wrong? She flinched, as if I'd struck her. No, it's not like that. She swallowed, grasping for words. I can explain. Don't, I cut in, taking a step closer. Don't insult me with another lie. She pressed herself against the door, looking anywhere but at me. And then, as if on cue, a knock, soft, hesitant. Vanessa stiffened. I saw the exact moment she realized who it was. Her lover, right outside. Her lips parted, and for the briefest moment, I saw hope flicker across her face. She thought he could save her, that he would walk in, see me, and step between us like some kind of hero. I smiled. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and pressed a button. A quiet chime filled the air. A notification on Vanessa's phone. She looked down at her purse, at the screen flashing through the thin leather. I watched the color drain completely from her face. She fumbled with the clasp, pulled the phone out with shaking hands. Read the message. For me. Go ahead, let him in. See what happens. A single tear slid down her cheek. Another knock, more insistent this time. Vanessa? Ryan's voice muffled through the door. Babe! I exhaled slowly, savoring the moment. Then I leaned in, lowered my voice to barely a whisper. Open it, I murmured. She shook her head violently. Jake, please. Open. The door? Her fingers trembled on the handle. She was trapped. No escape. No excuses. She hesitated. And then, against all her instincts, she turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing Ryan, dressed sharp, a cocky smirk on his lips, a bouquet of roses in his hand, and then me standing there, waiting. Ryan froze, the smirk vanishing instantly. His eyes darted from Vanessa to me, realization dawning like a slow, inevitable train wreck. I let the silence stretch, let the weight of the moment crush him. Then I stepped forward. His grip on the bouquet tightened. Jake, he swallowed. This isn't. I tilted my head. Let me guess. It's not what I think. He tried to laugh, but it came out choked. His gaze flickered to Vanessa, as if expecting her to say something, to fix this. She just stared at the floor. Ryan inhaled sharply. His instincts finally kicked in. He turned. In rain. Vanessa let out a broken sob, watching the man she risked everything for disappear down the hall without a second thought. I leaned against the doorframe, watching him go. Then, without looking at her, I murmured, You picked a real winner, huh? She crumpled, sinking to her knees, face buried in shaking hands. I should have felt anger, rage, hatred, but I didn't. I just felt done. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the small flash drive I had prepared, the one with every text, every call log, every reservation receipt, every betrayal neatly compiled. I dropped it onto the floor beside her. Everything's on there, I said simply, for the divorce lawyer. Vanessa gasped, looking up, eyes wide. Jake! But I was already walking away. By the time she got home, her suitcases would be waiting. By the time she grasped the full extent of what she had lost, I'd be gone. And that, I thought with quiet satisfaction, was justice. I walked out of the hotel suite, leaving Vanessa on the floor, a crumpled mess of smeared lipstick, expensive fabric, and shattered illusions. The hallway was quiet, except for the distant hum of the elevators. Ryan was long gone. Probably still running, if I had to guess. I didn't care where he went. His part in this was over. Mine wasn't. I took the elevator down to the lobby, the mirrored walls reflecting my composed expression. I felt lighter. Not happy, not victorious, but unburdened. Like I'd just taken a deep breath after holding it in for years. As I stepped out, the doorman gave me a polite nod. He had no idea what had just happened upstairs. No one did, except Vanessa. And soon the whole world would know, too. A message she can't ignore. I got into my car and pulled out my phone. A few taps and the files I'd carefully compiled, the screenshots, the credit card statements, the hotel bookings, the call logs, were uploaded to a private email. Vanessa's email. Subject for your records. I didn't add a message. She'd get the point. Before she could even pick herself off the floor, she would see it. The final nail in her coffin. I set the phone aside and gripped the wheel, inhaling deeply. I should go home. But home wasn't home anymore. Not with her things still there. Not with the memories of someone I thought I knew. So instead, I drove, the house she no longer owns. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the house in deep, hollow shadows. It looked different now, empty, like it was already erasing Vanessa's presence. I stepped inside, the smell of lavender, her favorite candle, still lingering in the air. Soon that would be gone too. Boxes lined the front hallway, filled with her clothes, her jewelry, her carefully curated life. The movers had done their job. The house was almost clean of her. Almost. I made my way to the bedroom, pausing at the closet. The doors were open, the space where her designer dresses once hung now eerily vacant. A few forgotten hangers swayed gently, metal clinking against the wood. I ran a hand over the empty shelves, then picked up the last box. Inside, tucked between folded clothes, was the wedding album. I exhaled slowly. I could have thrown it away, burned it, but that would imply I still cared. Instead, I carried it downstairs and placed it neatly on top of the suitcases stacked by the door. A reminder, a farewell, the moment of realization. It was almost midnight when Vanessa's car screeched into the driveway. I was sitting in the living room sipping the last drink I'd ever have in this house. The sound of tires on gravel, frantic footsteps up the porch, the rattling of keys. She was rushing. Panicked. I didn't move as she burst through the door, breathless, eyes wild with desperation. She saw the boxes, the suitcases, the wedding album, and then she saw me. Jake, she gasped, stepping forward. Wait, just wait. I swirled the whiskey in my glass, watching her. I thought I made myself clear, I said evenly. She shook her head, tears already slipping down her cheeks. No, you don't understand. I wasn't thinking. It was a mistake. I I held up a hand. Stop. She fell silent. I stood, setting my glass down with deliberate care. I don't care why you did it. I don't care what you thought or what you feel now. The only thing that matters is that you made a choice. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. And I made mine. Her gaze flickered to the suitcases. You're kicking me out? Her voice cracked. I shrugged. You don't live here anymore. A sob tore from her lips, raw and broken. Jake, please, don't do this. I love you. I laughed, actually laughed. Her eyes widened as if that reaction hurt more than my anger ever could. You don't love me, Vanessa. You love security. You love comfort. You love having your cake and eating it too. She stepped closer, reaching for me. But I do. I swear. I took a step back. Then tell me, Vanessa, if I hadn't caught you tonight, how much longer would it have gone on? She flinched. You were never going to stop, I said softly. You weren't going to confess. You weren't going to change. She couldn't argue, because we both knew the answer. I walked to the front door, opening it wide. The night air was cold, sharp. She stared at me, eyes pleading. You can't mean this, she whispered. I simply looked at her. Take your bags, Vanessa. She stood frozen, then let out a shuddering breath. And finally she understood. With shaking hands, she picked up the first suitcase, then another, until all her things were gathered. She hesitated in the doorway, looking back one last time. I said nothing. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say something. One last, desperate plea. Then, shoulders slumped in defeat, she walked out. I didn't watch her go. I simply shut the door and locked it. For the first time in years, the house felt quiet. Not empty, just mine. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains, no movement from the other side of the bed, no lingering scent of Vanessa's perfume. For the first time in years, the house belonged to me alone. I got up, stretched, and took my time making a pot of coffee. It tasted better today, maybe because I wasn't sharing it with a liar. Vanessa hadn't called, hadn't texted, but I knew she wasn't done. A woman like Vanessa doesn't go quietly. I scrolled through my phone, sipping my coffee. A few emails, some news updates, and then a message from an unknown number. Vanessa's at my office. What do you want me to do? It was from Mark, my coworker and longtime friend. I smirked. Of course she was. Desperation in broad daylight. By the time I arrived at my office, Vanessa was pacing outside the glass doors, her arms crossed, her sunglasses hiding whatever sleepless nights she'd had. She spotted me the moment I stepped out of my car. Jake! She rushed forward, reaching for me before stopping herself. We need to talk. I checked my watch. You had all night to talk. What do you want now? Her lips trembled, but she steadied herself. You humiliated me. I raised an eyebrow. You humiliated yourself, Vanessa. I just turned on the light so you could see it. Her jaw tightened. Do you really have to be this cruel? I laughed under my breath. Cruel? You lied to me for God knows how long. You took my trust, my money, my time, and threw it into a cheap hotel room. And now, I'm the cruel one. She shifted, looking around at the people walking by, pretending not to stare. That's what really bothered her. It wasn't the cheating. It wasn't the broken marriage. It was the fact that she was losing control of the narrative. Jake, please. We can fix this, she whispered, lowering her voice. No one has to know. Oh, but they will, I interrupted. In fact, I'm making sure of it. She paled. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. It was open to a group chat, the one with our closest friends. I scrolled up, letting her see the messages I'd sent late last night. Screenshots, hotel receipts, the video of her stepping into that room looking for Ryan, finding me instead. The responses ranged from shock to disgust. Her breath hitched. Jake, no, oh, I did. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, and before you ask, no, I don't care about keeping this private for you. You lost that privilege when you made me the fool in our marriage. Her hands balled into fists. You're ruining my life, I shrugged. And you ruined ours, so I guess we're even. The final goodbye. She let out a sharp breath, her carefully built composure cracking at the edges. I don't have anywhere to go, Jake. Not my problem, I said simply. Her voice wavered. I have no money. My name's not on the house. I tilted my head. You thought of that before, didn't you? You knew the risks, but you did it anyway. You wanted the best of both worlds, me for stability, Ryan for excitement. Tears welled up in her eyes. I was stupid, okay? I made a mistake. A mistake? I repeated. A mistake is forgetting to pick up the dry cleaning. A mistake is burning dinner. You, Vanessa, you made a choice. She wiped at her face, looking utterly lost. For a moment, I felt something close to pity, only for a moment. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope, and she stared at it. What's that? Divorce papers, I said, holding them out. She blinked, stepping back as if they might burn her. You already filed? Of course, I said. You're predictable, Vanessa. The moment you walked into that hotel room, you sealed your fate. She swallowed hard. Can we talk about this first? I sighed, tilting my head. Sure. Let's talk. Where do you want to start? The months of lies? The financial betrayal? Or how about the fact that the moment Ryan saw me standing there, he bolted without looking back? She winced. Yeah, that one hurt. I signed the papers, Vanessa, I said. There's nothing left to say. She looked at me for a long moment as if searching for some crack in my resolve, some sign that I'd waver, but she found nothing. Finally, she reached for the envelope. Her fingers shook as she took it. Her mouth opened as if to say something, but no words came out. I gave her one last glance. Then, without another word, I walked past her and into my office. I didn't look back. For the first time in a long time, I didn't need to. The divorce papers were signed within the week. Vanessa didn't fight. She didn't try to drag it out or negotiate for more. Maybe she thought she could still fix things. Maybe she thought I'd soften, give in. She was wrong. The day she left for good, I stood by the window watching as she climbed into a cab, her suitcases stacked neatly beside her. She hesitated before getting in, glancing back at the house, the life she'd destroyed. I didn't wave. And then just like that, she was gone. Freedom never felt so good. The silence in the house was different now. It wasn't empty. It was peaceful. The weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had lifted, leaving behind something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. I took my time, undoing every trace of her. The sheets she had slept in, replaced. The wine glasses she used for her fake girls' nights, smashed. Every single picture of us together, gone. I even repainted the bedroom, a fresh start, one brushstroke at a time. But the real closure came 2 weeks later. Karma comes knocking. It was late afternoon when my phone buzzed with a notification. A message from an old friend. Check this out. Attached was a screenshot of a social media post. Ryan's wife, yes, wife, had found out about his affair. And unlike me, she didn't handle it in silence. She blasted the whole thing online, tagging Vanessa in every post. Vanessa Harper, homewrecker. Liar. Cheat. There were photos, screenshots of messages, a timeline that made it painfully clear Vanessa had been the other woman long before she ever booked that hotel room. And the best part? Ryan had dumped her. Vanessa had thrown away her marriage for a man who never even considered keeping her. I laughed. A deep, satisfied karma's a beautiful thing kind of laugh. For the first time, I didn't feel anger when I thought of Vanessa. I just felt nothing. The last goodbye. That evening, as I sipped a drink on my newly repainted patio, my phone rang. I didn't need to check the caller ID. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Then finally I picked up. I didn't say a word, just waited. Vanessa's voice cracked through the line, small and fragile. Jake, I closed my eyes, letting the moment hang, letting her feel the silence. The power had shifted. She wasn't the one controlling the narrative anymore. I was. And then, before she could say another word, I hung up. No anger, no parting words, just the sound of the call ending, because Vanessa was already dead to me, and I had a new life to live, one where she no longer existed. The end.